In the shadowy corners of Detroit, where survival meant playing by a different set of rules, one name echoed through the streets with a chilling resonance: Nathaniel "Nate Boone" Kraft. He wasn't just another figure in the world of crime. He was the most feared hitman in the city's history. Kraft's reputation was built not just on the sheer number of lives he took, but on the cold precision with which he operated. For those who knew his name, Nate Boone was the embodiment of terror, a man whose presence could turn the bravest hearts to stone. As we delve into the life of Nate Boone, we'll uncover the layers of a man who became a legend for all the wrong reasons. This is the story of how one person rose from the gritty streets to become the most feared enforcer Detroit had ever known. But behind every trigger pulled, there's a story that tells us more than just the body count. It reveals the man behind the myth, the choices that led him down this path, and the impact he left on a city still haunted by his memory. Boone was born and raised on Detroit's East Side, a neighborhood steeped in poverty and crime. His parents worked tirelessly to provide a better life, but despite their efforts, financial stability remained out of reach. This environment left a lasting impression on Boone, shaping his worldview and fueling his drive to escape poverty by any means necessary. Boone's descent into the criminal world began at an alarmingly young age. By the age of 9, he was already dabbling in the drug trade under the mentorship of a man named Charlie. Boone was a child with the mentality of an adult, with a sharpness that set him apart from his peers. He observed that those who seemed to have money and power were all connected to Charlie, a realization that marked the beginning of his dark journey. At just 10 years old, Boone committed his first execution. He later recounted how he felt no remorse, only a sense of relief that the person standing in the way of his money was eliminated. This early act of violence was the gateway to a life filled with bloodshed and terror. As he grew older, Boone's reputation as a ruthless enforcer solidified. He wasn't just a substance dealer. He was an enforcer who would stop at nothing to collect what was owed, and woe to anyone who crossed him. Boone's violent nature became evident when Charlie, his mentor, refused to increase his pay despite Boone's growing responsibilities. Disrespected and enraged, Boone did what came naturally. He slayed Charlie, eliminating the man who had introduced him to the criminal world. This act of betrayal marked a turning point in Boone's life, solidifying his status as a man to be feared. From that point on, Boone was known as a man who could slay without hesitation, and his reputation only grew. He was no longer just a street hustler, he was a walking, menacing machine. His willingness to slay any time, combined with his cold and calculating nature, earned him the nickname Iceman. This moniker wasn't just a reference to his icy demeanor, but also to his ability to terminate lives without flinching. As Boone's notoriety spread, he caught the attention of higher-ups in the criminal underworld. He became involved with the Best Friends gang, a group known for their violent methods and ruthless enforcement of their drug empire. Boone's role within the gang was that of a hitman, a position that perfectly suited his talents. If someone needed to be taken out, Boone was the man for the job. His weapon of choice varied. Sometimes it was a gun, other times a knife. But the result was always the same: death. One of Boone's most notorious acts of violence was against a man named Leroy, who had the misfortune of assaulting Boone's sister. Boone's response was swift and brutal. He tracked Leroy down and slit his throat, basking in the warmth of his victim's blood. This act not only demonstrated Boone's capacity for violence, but also showed that no one, not even family, was safe from his wrath. Boone's ability to strike fear into the hearts of others extended beyond his enemies. Even within his own family, Boone's violent tendencies were well known. When he discovered that his brother had stolen from him, Boone didn't hesitate. He was ready to slay his own sibling. It was only their mother's intervention that saved his brother's life, as she physically placed herself between Boone and his intended target. This incident highlighted Boone's unwavering commitment to his own code of conduct. Disrespect or betrayal, no matter the source, was met with lethal force. This mindset made Boone one of the most feared men in Detroit, a reputation that only grew as he continued to operate within the Best Friends gang. Boone's loyalty was reserved for those who could help him maintain his position of power. One such figure was Richard Maserati Rick Carter, a substance kingpin who employed Boone as his bodyguard. Maserati Rick was at the top of the substance trade in Detroit, thanks in part to his connection with Colombian suppliers. However, the criminal world is filled with treachery, and Rick's reign was challenged by a rival named Terrence Boogaloo Brown, also known as Boo. Rick made the fatal mistake of introducing Boo to his Colombian connect, unaware that Boo was plotting to cut him out of the equation. Boo orchestrated an assassination attempt on Rick, who survived the initial attack but was later finished off in the hospital. Boone believed that Boo was responsible for Rick's demise, a belief that set the stage for a violent power struggle within the Best Friends gang. As Boone's reputation as a hitman grew, so did the scope of his assignments. One of the most high-profile jobs Boone accepted was the assassination of Richard Wershey Jr., better known as White Boy Rick. Wershey had become an FBI informant at the age of 14, providing information that led to the convictions of several Detroit substance lords. By the time he was arrested in 1987, Wershey was a marked man. Boone was contracted to eliminate White Boy Rick, and he was more than willing to take on the job. However, the first attempt on Wershey's life was unsuccessful. Undeterred, Boone and his associates devised a new plan. They would intentionally get themselves arrested for minor offenses, ensuring they ended up in the same prison as Wershey, where they could carry out the hit. This plan, however, was thwarted when the FBI intervened, moving Wershey to a different location before Boone could carry out the assassination. Despite this failure, Boone's ability to plot such an audacious scheme only added to his fearsome reputation. In the criminal underworld, betrayal is inevitable, and Boone was no exception. The turning point in his life came with the death of his younger brother, Andre. While Boone was serving time in prison, Andre was slayed, allegedly on the orders of Boo. This act of treachery marked the beginning of the end for the Best Friends gang and Boone's loyalty to them. Boone was allowed to attend his brother's funeral, and it was there that he learned Boo had been responsible for Andre's demise. Enraged, Boone vowed to take revenge. He returned to prison and began plotting Boo's demise. The plan was to implicate Boo in a crime and have him sent to prison, where Boone's associates would take care of him. However, Boo was not easily outmaneuvered. A deadly game of cat and mouse ensued, with each man trying to outsmart the other while maintaining the appearance of loyalty. Little did Boone's associates know, he had already decided to turn informant, providing the feds with information that would lead to the arrest of several Best Friends members. Boone's decision to cooperate with the authorities was driven by a desire for revenge, but it also put his life in danger. His former allies quickly caught wind of his betrayal and plotted to eliminate him. The opportunity presented itself at a funeral for one of their associates named Mark. Boo was present, and Boone saw this as the perfect chance to take him out. But Boo was prepared. He had his affiliates surrounding him, never letting Boone out of their sight. Boone and his crew paid a cab driver to remain parked nearby while they attempted the hit. But when the shooting started, the driver panicked and drove off, leaving Boone exposed. In the chaos that followed, Boone was shot multiple times by his own friends. A bullet pierced his back, another shattered his hand, and a third grazed his neck. Despite his injuries, Boone managed to return fire, causing his attackers to flee. He survived the attempt on his life, but the encounter left him with scars that would serve as a constant reminder of the day his own gang turned on him. The failed hit and the demise of an innocent cab driver during the chaos were the final nails in the coffin for Boone's criminal career. The feds, who had already been monitoring Boone, now had enough evidence to arrest him. Boone, knowing his days were numbered, decided to cut a deal. He agreed to testify against the members of the Best Friends gang in exchange for immunity from prosecution. In total, Boone admitted to participating in 30 murders, a staggering number that underscored his role as one of Detroit's most prolific hitmen. His cooperation led to the conviction of several high-ranking members of the gang, effectively dismantling the organization. After his cooperation with the authorities, Boone was placed in witness protection and relocated to a new area. For a time, he lived under a new identity, away from the life of crime that had defined him for so long. However, Boone eventually returned to Detroit, the city that had made him who he was. Today, Boone lives a life far removed from the violence and terror he once inflicted on others. While he has left his criminal past behind, the memories of his actions still haunt him. Boone has admitted that of all the murders he committed, there is only one that he regrets. Despite his regret, Boone remains a figure of fear and fascination in Detroit. He is a man who has seen the darkest side of human nature and has emerged on the other side, scarred, but still standing. His story is a witness to the harsh realities of life in the criminal underworld, where loyalty is fleeting and death is always just around the corner. Nathaniel "Nate" Boone. Kraft's journey from a poverty-stricken childhood to becoming one of Detroit's most feared hitmen is a story of violence, betrayal, and survival. His rise to power was fueled by an insatiable hunger for control and a willingness to do whatever it took to maintain his position. While Boone may have left his life of crime behind, the legacy of his actions continues to cast a long shadow over Detroit's underworld. In the end, Boone is a man who lived by the code of the streets, where loyalty was a lie and trust was a trap. His life serves as a stark reminder that in the world of organized crime, there are no winners, only survivors.